Before we begin today's episode, we would like to inform our listeners that this episode was recorded in April of 2022. And while we are well informed about the current events, we unfortunately could not incorporate all of that in this episode. But having said that, we would like to continue these sort of conversations in the upcoming ones. So stay tuned and enjoy this episode. Hi everyone, I'm Kritisha.
And I am Aditya.
And welcome to Dhikichyau, the podcast. This is episode 40. And we are in conversation with Boju Bajai.
Welcome.
Welcome.
Hi.
And Itishadi.
Hi.
We are so happy to have you guys on our podcast, finally.
We're so happy to be here. Thank you so much for inviting us, Kritisha and Aditya. And this is our first time being
separately we've spoken
on different platforms, but as Prikuti and I guesting on someone else's podcast. This is our first time. Yeah.
We are privileged.
ऐतिहासिक
Nice.
अविस्मरणीय पलहरू.
Wow.
Thank you so much for being here, Dion. Thank you so much for organizing Nepal's first podcast
festival. That's actually
All
actually
years,
how we
all
got.
years, all years.
Stop it now.
सुन्दा भइसक्यो होला तपाईहरुलाई.
Yeah, I mean, it was an intense weekend. We started working on it, 6 months ago?
Wow.
We had this idea 2 years ago. We started working on it seriously 6 months ago, and we were very lucky to get support from Splice Media, who kind of sort of walked us through online कसरी यस्तो खाले event organize गर्ने भनेर. So yeah, it was good, I thought. I know, and we got to meet you guys as well, so that was really nice.
Yeah, I think they were just I've been following you guys. We've been following you guys for quite some time now. They're to actually meet you guys and have that conversation on Sunday about the podcasting community and all of that was really nice. Interesting. Also guests from all around the world and Sunny also podcasters from Nepal. They were there, so quite insightful.
So
I'm there. We were
to
excited.
check out their work. This month is everything's available at Boju Bajai platform. So do check out their
bojubajai.org/all-ears. All ears.
So let's start with the origin of Boju Bajai, how it all started.
Because you love telling the story. So.
देशमा हामी बोजू बजै हामी young थियौँ. No, actually हामीले बोजू बजै सुरु गरेको 2016 मा हो हैन.
Right.
And त्यति बेला Itisha and I that was, I mean, we were part of the same play, the Vagina Monologues त्यति बेला. That was the first time I'd met Itisha. अनि त्यो practice training हरूको बेलामा चाहिँ we started talking, and clearly we were very interested in how नेपाली मिडियामा हुने बहसहरू हैन, स्पेशली हाम्रो नेपाली पब्लिक स्फियरमा कस्तो खाले भोइसेसहरू आउँछ आउँदैन. अनि क्लियरली त्यहाँ चाहिँ we didn't see a lot of people like ourselves है, वुमेनहरू एकदम कम थिए हैन. अनि the kind of themes they spoke about, the way they reported on issues concerning women, people from marginalized groups, communities, that was very problematic and also not sufficient.
Yeah,
right.
So we were like, we will change the face of media landscape.
Yes.
We know how to make podcasts.
Yeah, the first episode we recorded under a desk at Prikuti's former office.
Wow.
After working hours, and then they saw me and they're like, please, you can't bring people after working hours.
You can't bring randoms and hang out under desks.
Yeah, it's like, okay. And so
we were, it was just sort of, we did it for fun because we both loved podcasts. We both had a lot to say. And it was just before I was going back to Madrid as well. So we just recorded it. And we uploaded it literally the day I landed in Madrid, I think, or in Spain. And
it was slightly yeah. But it was not like, oh, this is going to be like a beyond one episode thing. Okay? It was just like something we talked about. And what we talked about was unfortunately we've already made 10 episodes about it. But
yeah, so the first episode was about online harassment that women face, I know, and हाम्रो सबभन्दा popular episode to date because of the name, I think. Yes. It's called Bears and Whores. And so we get a lot of like search algorithm.
We talk about bhalu type ko Nepali ma ke bhन्छ bhalu. So it's basically about that. There's like a cute bear ko photo in a bikini. Somehow we found it.
Yeah.
So we just felt like the name itself must have been quite searched by Nepali sort of खूब आउँदछ Nepali bhalu खोज्छ होला, so they just find out our podcast.
But that's true.
That's true. That's
true.
how it works, no? Keywords. So that's हाम्रो assumption is that's the reason. I mean, not just that, I think it was a great episode.
So yeah, and basically the story is that the first episode, once we uploaded it got a lot of traction. We received a lot of comments, a lot of great feedback, and so that just gave us the motivation to sort of keep doing it. And
actually the next episode that we did immediately was about how the more mainstream भनौँ न टिभी न्युजपेपरहरूमा चाहिँ महिलाहरूको इस्युलाई कसरी कभर गर्छ भनेर गर्नको लागि चाहिँ इट्स एक्चुअली हाम्रो some of the people who discovered that episode, they sent us, okay, you should check this out and do something about this.
Oh my god, I remember one of our listeners sent us was it in Naya Patrika? Yeah, Naya Patrika Nepali.
Before it was woke.
Before it became woke. They used to have this, the weekend special mage. They used to have this double page spread.
साप्ताहिक हो क्या?
होइन नयाँ पत्रिकामा weekend उसमा they used to have this double page spread where they interviewed like a famous person and his or her partner, होइन, so husband wife whatever. अनि त्यति बेला the kind of questions, so they put like 50 questions to the partners, and one of the question was like who was the interview? It was yes,
the former speaker of हाम्रो parliament.
And so कहिलेकाहीँ माया
वा रिसले के तपाईको श्रीमानले तपाईलाई पिट्नुहुन्छ भनेर
त्यस्तो खाले क्वेशन्सहरु के
माया वा
रिसमा तपाईको श्रीमानले तपाईलाई कुट्नुहुन्छ तर in such a like casual way as if that's totally acceptable. So we did like an entire segment just on that, like being critical of, and we went through like back issues of the same format, same interview, and there were a lot of problematic questions being asked, I know. So now they've stopped that thing.
They've stopped it. I think because of our episode.
Nice, for good.
We would like to think that there's so many things. Also, अर्को reason is, and I think that will sort of conclude our origin story, is like हामीले यस्तो कुराहरु चाहिँ we're not saying we're the first ones to do it. भइरहेको थियो social media मा त it was like, so we also used to tweet about it, होइन, Facebook status लेख्यो or even write an article and then के हुन्छ and then सक्यो. तर त्यो I think sustain sort of like critique on Nepali media, हाम्रो public sphere को एउटा the way it looked very non-inclusive type को त्यस्तो spaces हरुको बारेमा चाहिँ sustain conversation गर्ने चाहिँ एउटा बाटो बनाएको छ के बोजु बजै.
That's true. हो because these are the things like Chao said earlier, it's always going to be there. And we constantly have to like question them, talk about it and all of that to actually like make people think why it's wrong or like if it's happening, why. So then like,
and also just to add to what, you just said and this constant, like it's always been there. Like Prikuti said, like we're not the first people to have these conversations, and a lot of women have these very same conversations in their private spheres, I know. Right. So if you go hang out with your friends, for example, you'll probably be critical of certain things, whether that's, I don't know, misogyny in Nepali mainstream media or whatever it is. Women are having these conversations in their private spaces. And the fact that we sort of do this in a very informal way, we just took that conversation to a public space.
Right.
So in a way, like women suddenly, I think, felt that, oh, well, this is what I think.
I'm not the only one.
This is what I said to my friend the other day. And like they hear us talking about it and suddenly, there is this connection. So these private spheres get connected and
your emotions get validated, Nita, through that.
Yeah.
So, which is nice, I mean.
I think we should let Aditya also speak. बोलेको
I think यो एपिसोडमा चाहिँ म त्यही भन्न थालेँ कि I want to sit and listen and because there's a lot
Please don't do that.
Yeah, because we'll keep talking for like 5 hours and we have to go home.
I want to do majority of the listening and also like हुन्छ नि give all the feedbacks हरू तर there's a lot of education as a guy in the podcast in the room भनौँ न एक्लै केटा there's a lot to learn के हुन्छ नि
But we need the male voice also. फेरि खोइ त केटाहरुको त कहीं आएन त भन्छ फेरि खोइ boysहरुको त आएन.
We get that a lot.
Yeah, what about our feelings?
What about our feelings? Why don't you talk about our feelings?
Male.
I think यसको बारेमा कुरा गर्दा हामी ठ्याक्क भेट्नुभन्दा अगाडि we're talking about हजुरको एउटा एपिसोड about dating apps, सुत्ने apps if you will. अनि त्यसमा चाहिँ मैले फिक्री दिदीलाई भन्दै थिएँ क्या लाइक खोइ त there was no like guy perspective on dating apps भनेर it's like guys have perspectives everywhere
Yeah.
You guys have like 364 days a year so you have men's
एक दिन women's day
one more men's day also you are getting anyway no I think the whole point of that particular episode was like Nepali women's experience on dating apps हैन so त्यसले गर्दा थियो तर we like I was mentioning yes we are a feminist podcast feminist platforms हैन and we have a lot of men also हैन coming to our podcast like हाम्रो त्यो के भन्छ about reproductive health the sexual health को बारे sex aid को बारेमा गर्दाखेरि हामीले we spoke to a bunch of men so yes
I mean we feature male voices too like we've had Sabine Mulmi who's a lawyer we've had Ankit who's he's reported for us Ankit Khadgi the journalist so but obviously we because of our vision and our overall objective and goal we try to create and push for space for women for women voices and that doesn't mean that we're kind of creating this segregation or this segregated space our platforms and whatever content whatever extensions manifestations of Boju Bajaiको idea like we will always prioritize women's voices I think that's like
just look around us we only get March 8 so हामी चाहिँ हरेक दिन March 8 हो Boju Bajaiमा
so I think
now we'll come to why feminist voices are so important in mainstream media pani and like whatever you guys are doing pani but so there's this negative connotation towards feminism as a whole okay so tabaile like sabai janale they don't look at feminism the same way and it's kind of scary to even like when you tell people you're like feminist people especially guys they look at you in a different way
agreed
La Kritisha at the receiving end
because like I've had people tell me are you the feminist type I'm like what the hell are you not a feminist
right
but I know like sometimes it is intimidating because obviously not everybody is well versed on like what it means or like what it does and like उनीहरुले चाहिँ त्यो एकदमै radical feminism हरू मात्रै कहाँबाट सोशल मिडियामा हल्का हल्का देखाएको हुन्छ नि त अनि त्यसले गर्दाखेरि पनि हल्का हल्का एउटा intimidation चाहिँ हुन्छ के so how do you make feminist voices is it supposed to be intimidating or like is it supposed to be like
well maybe it would be interesting to know why they find feminist voices intimidating
I think the female voices they find intimidating
but why like what is the reason I mean you must have heard no like kiन चाहिँ intimidating लाग्छ feminism भन्ने बित्तिकै
I think most of them को लागि चाहिँ it's like what if I say something wrong and I offend them
that is one thing no but like most radical feminism I might like कस्तो अब यहाँ चाहिँ like बोल्दाखेरि कस्तो political correct हुनु पर्ने जस्तो लाग्छ हैन तर कस्तो भन्दाखेरि चाहिँ अब तपाईले मेन स्ट्रिम मिडियामा हेर्दाखेरि there's like very backlash on like extreme like there's movements like the slut walk and there's very out there kind of feminism and obviously when men look at it is not that fits their idea what's in the society it's not does not fit the framework
right
and it's like what's going on khali huncha unharle and when they talk about feminism it's like that is the first thing or like that's the only thing that comes to their mind and I think that's how they look at feminism in some ways because उनीहरुसँग चाहिँ धेरै एक्सपोजर नै भएको छैन जे जति एक्सपोजर भएको छ it's on like यस्तै
patriarchy
so त्यो भएर पनि के अनि I feel like there is a huge need to just like your education, but then like finding
the Wikipedia, why can't they just look at it? Oh my God. I'm so tired of telling people what it is. But no, that's like a where you come from and what you just told us. I think
there's two ways of looking at it. So one is not knowing enough about what feminism means. I know. So there's a lot of and I feel like this narrative or this sort of these misconceptions around feminism are usually created by people who know what feminism is, but they create these narratives because they're not happy with feminist values or what feminism stands for, right? And really, I mean, to put it in the most simplest way, feminism as an ideology stands for equality and equity and against oppression of all forms. You know, we're not just interested in oppression and violence against women. You know, we're interested in like caste, ethnicity, and men fall within those
right
categories as well. You know, so feminism isn't just related to women; it's related to everyone. Basically, the goal is that the society as a whole should be just. Should be fair, should not oppress anyone on the basis of their caste, their gender, their ethnicity, their class, you know. We're all sort of working towards having like a more equitable, more just society, you know. So a very important part of feminism is also social justice. And social justice at the end will benefit the society as a whole, you know. तर के हुन्छ भने फेमिनिजममा हामीले social justice, equity, equality को कुरा गर्दाखेरि चाहिँ what happens is people who already have power and that power could be based on anything, you know, your power as a khas Arya male, for example, who has been holding like political power also in the corridors of power, you know, त्यो power को source पनि different हुन्छ नि त. अब feminism ले त्यो power structure लाई नै challenge गरिरहेको छ भने त आफू पहिल्यैदेखि powerful position भएर बसिरहेको मान्छेलाई why would they want to give up their power,
right?
You know, so a lot of this backlash comes from like this fear of losing power. What you have, you know, whether that's power, social capital, you know, money, whatever that might be, you know. So this fear really comes from that, okay? Like mero chai, like why does anybody want to take what is mine?
It's been questioned and you feel alikati attacked in a way.
Like if you put it in that sense, like it's completely, that is how it should be portrayed in media, so like, but oftentimes how people see it, they see it, feminism is like a war against men khale narratives
and that's why like your social media misinformation and all of these
half-baked dangerous
ideas that are being propagated, saying like if feminism bhaneko ta it's like hatred towards men, or you know, feminism bhaneko ta it's like okay patriarchy बाट matriarchy मा जाने हैन, त्यस्तो खाले आइडियाज हरु जुन आइरा छ पहिले देखि नै आइरा छ, especially नेपाली context मा त अलिकति पनि feminist voice like public sphere मा आयो भने त the kind of abuse and the kind of hate that these feminist voices receive, it's quite, you know, dangerous. And also, you know, they usually say that this feminist your positions, ideology spaces that we're capturing, according to them, capturing or taking up is funded by external forces. I know. So त्यो पनि छ. So these are just ways to discredit.
So
the
is
movement.
it also in Nepal? Is it also seen as a Western ideology that's being pushed in the East, Khali?
Not just in Nepal, there are developing countries or even like
South may
or global South.
They see it as like within this Western power, Western ideology.
They see like an attack on whatever structures that has benefited them.
Morality.
Yeah, so त्यो एउटा जहिले पनि भन्छ नि यो चाहिँ यो त हाम्रो नेपालमा यस्तो हुँदैन. अब त्यो नेपाल यो it happened not just in Nepal, South Asia, तिमीले African countries हरु हैन, global South मा नै यस्तो खाले ideas हरुलाई चाहिँ brush off गर्ने one more Utyo is way of doing that is saying like, oh, this is our way of, this is not our way of doing things, almost, I know. This is like Western idea, whatever.
And that like these agents are behind these voices. So we're not like, you know, we don't have our own voice, we don't have our own agency, we're just kind of puppets type go. So that's also there. Like this is not something that's ever going to go away.
Yeah, and I think social media ko the nature is to we were just working on something and त्यहाँ पनि हाम्रोमा त अहिले सोसियल मिडियामा लिमिटेड छ अब होइन अनफर्चुनेटली यति डेन्जरस आइडियाज यति यङ एजको केटाकेटीहरूसँग पुगिरहेछ तर यस्तो डेन्जरस आइडियाज चाहिँ अब पोलिटिकल मेन स्ट्रिममा आएपछि चाहिँ कस्तो हुन्छ भन्ने अहिले इट्स लाइक संसारभरि नै यु नो इट्स देयर साउथ कोरियाको नयाँ प्रेसिडेन्ट ही सर्ट अफ लाइक रोड द you know like his campaign trail against यस्तै खालके यो
and he called himself an anti-feminist candidate.
Because you know like you guys you know like whoever's listening if you just look up South Korea feminism गर्यो भने यो जुन यो fringe group सानो हुन्छ नि you just think like social media मा there's certain groups 4,000 5,000 मात्रै छ and they're just saying all these ideas कसले सुनिरहेछ भन्छ पर it just became so huge in South Korea, which is already such a. No, I think from what I've read is because South Korea, like a lot of countries, you know, like around the world, especially Asia, it's very patriarchal. Ekdamai men harule चाहिँ like भनौँ न
the whole power.
Yeah, they are in like powerful positions, like in Nepal, and also like I think that. बाहिर अनि घरमा पनि एकदम स्ट्रिक्ट जेन्डर रोल्स भनौँ न केटी भएपछि चाहिँ यो गर्नै पर्ने अथवा यु नो लाइक केटाको जब चाहिँ इज आउटसाइड टाइपको त्यो खालके छ नि त साउथ कोरिया पनि एकदमै पेट्रियार्कल इन द्याट सेन्स एन्ड आई थिङ्क लट अफ रिजन्स क्या इज लाइक अब भनौँ न अनइम्प्लोइमेन्ट बढ्यो होला के होला एन्ड देन सडनली वुमेन अल्सो गेटिङ प्रोमिनेन्स थ्रु सोसियल मिडिया आइडिया यस्तो खालके जुन खालके आइडियाजहरू हामीले बोजू बजेको थ्रुबाट गर्छ I'm sure there's so many, you know, like young Korean women, South Korean women who are also like more active on social media, trying to talk about these issues. Anyway, this was like considered like a fringe group, your anti-feminist movement or on the internet. And it's just, I think they were like actual protesters, South Korea.
Yeah.
Demanding what?
No. Just this idea like अझै धेरै एम्प्लिफाई जुन अघि इतिशाले भन्यो नि डेन्जरस आइडियाजहरूलाई चाहिँ झन् एम्प्लिफाई गरेर चाहिँ इट समहाउ बिकेम beneficial for I think politicians to latch on to these dangerous ideas, populist ideas that
and win.
Yeah, and win and actually win their भनौँ न elections जस्तो which is एकदमै dangerous हो नि अहिले हैन and it's not just like anti-feminist अहिले इन्डियामै जस्तो जे भइरहेछ to call yourself anti-Muslim, to call yourself like hardline, you know, Hindu. That is something that benefits, you know, the in politics in so त्यो भएपछि that is dangerous के सुरुमा चाहिँ फ्रिन्ज यो त that's how we dismiss no यस्तो आइडियाजहरूलाई त्यो त यस्तै छ कसले सुन्छ उसको कुरा भन्छ तर you never know how big it and dangerous it can get यस्तो आइडियाजहरू and yeah it's just happening and it's not just like it happens with all kinds of
progressive movements, progressive ideas. So when Black Lives Matter took prominence and you know it became such a huge movement in the US, and then you see all of these sort of counter movements like hashtag all lives matter or you know hashtag or you know people just tweeting things like, oh well I have a black friend and I don't think racism exists in the US. So you surface by it I'd say sort of like banal and not very harmful kind of messaging coming through, but then really, you know, when it gathers momentum, then and basically all of this is because in any context there's always one power structure that has taken central space, I know, if for a long time, and when that structure starts getting challenged, then these sort of voices emerge attacking, you know, the historically marginalized groups, marginalized voices who are trying to sort of say like, hey, like, you know, you can't just take over the entire sort of resources, power modes, you know, all the influence, all the social capital can't just belong to one group forever and ever. And and these things are bound to happen. So,
and just one last thing, ekdamai how they dismiss and I think comment section on all the social media is a great insight into how people understand these things हैन कसैले एउटा केही कुरा लेखेको हुन्छ होला and then त्यसको मुनि आउने that sort of just gives you an idea नि त how people are thinking how people have sort of processed these things like let's say if we talk about gender discrimination or like okay नेपालमा यस्तो गाह्रो छ अथवा के यस्तो कुरा गर्यो भने or what we felt we felt discriminated on the basis of our sex. So यस्तो के हुन्छ भने तल चाहिँ अघि इच्छाले भने जस्तै त्यो ब्ल्याक लाइभ्स म्याटरमा भने जस्तै नेपालमा मात्रै नौ ठाउँमा पनि a lot of like whatever like oh like I work with so many women. I respect my sister. I like she's more educated than me.
My mother is like God to
my
me.
mother is God. I respect my mother. Oh, China is to like so त्यो पनि एउटा like एकदमै easy तरिकाले and people who sort of like don't want to look beyond that, they be like yeah, I also respect my mother. I also respect my sister. I work with so many women. I've never made them feel uncomfortable, so world is peaceful.
I think
world.
like,
yeah so
I think people just want to give their input without knowing the real thing.
yeah
probably or maybe they just don't want to look beyond their own worldview.
Right. That also becomes problematic. So like this sort of covers the backlash that you guys as feminist podcast like face huncha ni. So like how has it been like for the past 5-6 years tapaihharuko podcast bhaira cha haina ani like you guys have been very prominent on like talking about feminism and everything around it. So like how do you deal with it?
I think one thing we also have to mention is beyond the podcast, you guys are also extremely talented, extremely accomplished. Of
course,
she's an award-winning journalist.
International, if I may add, yeah. Thank you for that.
And so obviously, like outside, beyond Boju Bajai pani, you guys have faced a lot of backlash because you guys are very strong, powerful women, and like obviously in our society, that's not really, appreciated. In like obviously the people who appreciate it, तर त्यो backlash गर्ने पनि अब तपाईहरु नै खानी पनि तपाईहरु नै हुन्छ नि त पाउने पनि. So what has the experience been like?
I think maybe Brikuti, you can share some of your experiences. Like I like what I can think of is so when I don't know when this was, like 2017-18 when we did an open call for
MeToo.
Yeah.
So Boju Bajai from our social media platform, this was when the MeToo campaign movement was taking off, and everyone knows in like Subway, people are having these conversations in secret, of men who are predators, who have in positions of power in Nepal, really influential men across all disciplines, all sectors, and women know, right? Women in these sectors know, and they sort of have been working bhanda pani, they've been talking to each other and they're warning each other like be careful of him, be careful of him, be careful of him. So त्यति बेला चाहिँ we just did an open call saying like if you have any stories we'll sort of do an episode on Boju Bajai bhanera. And what we found was that was a really difficult period for us, I think. Like I remember what we found was we wanted to report on the stories that we received. I know there were very few women who wanted to go public with their stories. So a lot of the times it was just they just wanted to kind of just share. They just wanted to tell someone. And so very and that's completely understandable because there's so much at stake, for a woman. And the few stories that Brikuti and I worked together on one story, and then Brikuti just kind of continued because I think the first story that we worked together on was it
the former mayor? Sorry.
It was on Keshav Sthapit, who I think is running for mayor again this time.
I don't know.
Yeah, I saw his name.
Kathmanduko mayor?
Yeah.
पहिलाको mayor थियो काठमाडौँको.
So usko story, that was the first story that took Kathmandu Post ma aako थियो. त्यसपछि चाहिँ Brikuti wrote another story about a very influential academic.
Krishna Bhattachan.
And obviously Brikuti is from the indigenous community as well, and as a reporter reporting on MeToo and reporting on a male predator who's a very influential academic that has sort of been at the center of the indigenous movement in Nepal. So I was really worried for her then, because Brikuti, you went through a really tough time, I remember then. Or at least she sort of preempted, all of the possible things that could happen. तर त्यही पनि गाह्रो त भएको थियो नि.
So like when I say more journalist ho, so I was with Kathmandu Post. I think I was not full time there already. I sort of wrote that story for Kathmandu Post, and अरू ठाउँमा त देखेको छ नि त नेपालमा पो अरू ठाउँ जस्तोको MeToo coverage did not take over the entire country and changed institutions and changed sort of like started this conversation. अरू ठाउँमा भयो नि त नेपालमा भएन इन्डियामा पनि like it sort of took off in certain pockets अब जस्तो especially western world मा त like the kind of conversation it started it's just happened so quickly and so many things happened and so many things to learn also at least it just became this like after I think the way everyone from like भनौँ न यो intellectualsहरू मात्रै हैन like तपाईको politicians देखि लिएर everybody was like talking about this which meant like it's kind of create the kind of ripples this sort of movement should have created अगाडि नै हैन. Anyway, so नेपालमा चाहिँ already त्यस्तो खालको coverage आएको थिएन. It was already 1 year since the Harvey Weinstein story had come out and so many stories since then. इन्डियामा पनि आइसकेको थियो हैन, rest of the world मा पनि आइसकेको थियो. नेपालमा चाहिँ somehow एकदम छिटपुट मात्रै त्यो पनि not like investigative, it was just like somebody accused someone. Or like which was all पहिला पनि आउँथ्यो तर it didn't get the kind of prominence. I guess the story that I did was about how this professor was, I mean there were like I think more than 3 women who had alleged of similar predatory patterns in this man and I I tried to talk to women. Not everyone wanted to like reveal their identity understandably. There were things that I could corroborate. Okay, so uste bhanyo, but then I talked to the friends to like be like okay yeah, so this had happened, whatever. So after weeks and months of digging around, the story was ready and unfortunately के हुन्छ भने यस्तो खाले काम गर्दाखेरि plus if it's out there in the public just as a journalistic work or what happens is you are concerned about the safety of the people who spoke to you, right. So I tried my best to like just convince them ki okay like we understand like what you're going through and whatever, all that was in place. And the other thing was like my own safety, like as a female on the internet saying these things, reporting on these things, putting my name on it. I sort of like understood some of the risks that came with it because पहिला पनि कुनै हिसाबमा भएको थियो अनि अहिले पनि like so and it got a lot of prominence. It was on the front page, like this big news in Kathmandu Post, and I think I was very lucky to work with the editors that I did who understood the importance of यस्तो खालके story to give it the kind of treatment that they gave.
Right.
And yeah, so I sort of like I knew यस्तो हुन्छ social media छ हातमा सबजनाको they'll probably say all kinds of things about me, so मैले चाहिँ अगाडि नै like deactivated a certain things on my like most like social mostly Facebook ma was like okay, so people can't message me if you are not friends with me, or like you can't send me friend requests, you can't tag me. And and then the story came out and like and exactly त्यस्तै कुराहरु भयो क्या. People were tagging sort of like, and even worse actually, it even reached to my family, my parents and saying all kinds of things to them like तपाईको छोरीलाई अरूले युज गरेर यसरी like as if this whatever story I had done was not mine, and like I was like this spawn अरूले तपाईको छोरीलाई यसरी प्रयोग गरेर यस्तो डिस्क्रेडिट गर्न खोजिरहेछ हाम्रो मुभमेन्ट, whatever. It just turned into that. Unfortunately, it became a story about me. And I even received like calls, like people were like screaming, saying all kinds of things to me on the phone, which was very difficult. So this is just an example which happens to so many women on the internet. You post a picture and
so like, and just to give you an example, Sapna Sanjeevani, who is a poet and she's an artist too, she's a painter. She recited a poem at a women's march in Kathmandu, and the poem was called "मैं अब सीता नहीं बनबो," like अब हम सीता नहीं बनबो, like I'm no longer going to be Sita like anymore type ko हैन. अनि उसको त्यो poem,
it's a very powerful
poem. It's a very powerful poem. So when she recited that poem, she started receiving rape threats, death threats.
There was a
photo was morphed and superimposed onto like these horrible posters.
there was a fake account created on her name saying all kinds of things about her.
Yeah.
And she had to take like legal
measures. The legal measures ma jaँदाखेरि पनि like they made it very difficult for her, you know. So for her झनै त उसको, you know, she's a Madesi woman, a young Madesi woman, you know. So Madesi महिला हुने बित्तिकै अर्कै लेभलको अर्कै layer of discrimination, xenophobic attitudes आइहाल्छ हैन. त्यसमाथि a Madesi woman using her voice to challenge your hegemony of religion, Hindu religion,
right.
you know, using Hindu religious sort of types and archetypes and sort of subverting that, you know, that's a very radical and powerful thing to do as a Madesi woman. So for that, I mean, she went through a really tough time, but that didn't silence her. And I mean, you know, she's
and अहिले अनि obviously हामीले चाहिँ जस्तो म जर्नलिस्ट भएँ, so obviously मेरो एक लेभलको privilege थियो मलाई कि like all these people, you know, I knew through my work, they were like coming in my defense, whatever. तर सबैलाई हुँदैन नि. तपाईँले त्यो as simple as somebody posting a TikTok, like a regular woman posting a TikTok, and people are calling her names and people are laughing in the comment section, हैन, as if this is like, yeah, this is what she is, like why is she dancing, or like why is she saying this, doing something as innocent as dancing to a song can invite that kind of scrutiny to you, to your body, to what you're saying. And nobody is raising any like, oh, this is wrong. Everybody's like joining in, laughing, you know, like just
and it's not just online, right? So boyy ko naam ke re, you know, she's a minor and she's very popular on
Nikisha.
Yeah, so in her case, so she receives a lot of hate, for her identity, you know, and but what happened was like the people like bato hindira belama motorcycle ma dui jana hindiraको, like the same sort of language that's being used on social media ko comment section ma, they're repeating that language in real life, you know, offline. So we can't even just say you the social media you ignore garda huncha bhanera, because obviously that's translating into your offline world too. Okay, so we can't just like treat social media anymore as like just this you know, digital space, when actually your digital space or your real space ko borders are very
it's blurry.
It's very blurry. हामीले अघि भर्खर उसको साउथ कोरियाको कुरा गरे जस्तो, how it started as a internet ko सानो fringe group जस्तो, now it's like a major movement. That's the same thing that happened in US with the QAnon अनि the movement. So like you can't just treat यस्तो things is the digital platform मात्र, it's going to stick there भन्ने गर्न मिल्दैन, because it does translate.
It
encourages them to like actually do it offline.
The Pizzagate, Hillary Clinton ko usko belama, I mean,
but like even after like facing all of this, what keeps you guys going?
I really think that Brikuti and I are in a much more privileged position than some of the vitriol and hate that, you know, our sisters are receiving. By sisters, I mean other feminist organizations, other feminist voices, I know. So I think it's much tougher if you're a queer woman on an online space. It's much tougher if you're a Dalit woman who's using that space to challenge, you know, your caste hierarchy. So in a way, Brikuti and I, we have to acknowledge our privilege. So what we do, what keeps us going, I think, is that over the years, we've sort of tried to go beyond just the two of us, you know, on our podcast. So we've tried to sort of bring in as many voices as we can within Amro podcast medium, or, you know, we did this short video series, for instance. So for us, like, you know, also it's really boring for just like, so, you know, it's really exciting to work with other women who are doing really amazing things and including their voices, using like the platform to tell stories, you know, that haven't been told. So I think that's what keeps us going. So the Sutne Apps episode was so fun because, you know, we had like so many women's voices.
And
it's
also,
like
I think also because we really enjoy this audio medium which we've talked about. I know we did an entire podcast festival to show our love for this medium. And also I think this because we've been doing it for a while, हामीलाई चाहिँ त्यो एक किसिमको फर्मेटमा पनि एक्सपेरिमेन्ट गर्ने एउटा like we are very interested in doing that, and we've tried to do that. And so that also it also gets more interesting. How can you know, like experiment with different kinds of storytelling, the format, I guess
I think we can get into the audio format of podcasting and all of that, but before that, just like acknowledging what you guys just said, so I think you guys are sort of seeing this as like larger than life, larger than you guys khaliko, so that's probably what like gets you going, because it's not just your story, but then like all the women that you represent.
No, I wouldn't use the word represent, because I don't think we represent
other women.
I think it's more like women who maybe have become part of our community, and by that I mean in the loosest sense, who have engaged with us on some level, who might have listened to one episode, who are friends, who we meet at an event,
who become friends after listening to our episode.
So it's more like when you start connecting the dots, like, and suddenly you're part of a community, and for us it's always been like, how do we expand this community? But also it doesn't mean that everyone has to be part of our community.
Right.
It's more like, okay, there are other communities, I know. And so two communities are something. How do we engage on issues? How do we engage on concerns? Like, because we might have similar concerns, but we might have completely different concerns. Because all feminists at the end of the day, we're not the same. All feminists, there are many types of feminisms in Nepal. Also, there's no one feminist movement, So for us, this space is exciting because and it's fun because there's so many different feminist voices, and we're just like one tiny part of that. So and working with as many feminist voices as possible is really hamro dream.
One thing to appreciate is like how you guys package such powerful messages in like with humor and like ramailo.
Our X factor secret sauce which we please do not ask us how we do that.
If you guys do like when you pick up any of their episodes and you like listen to it, it's like such heavy topics, but like when you package in such ramailo, like ram.
I mean, mansele ramailo, so what to do?
All right,
true that.
Thank you so much,
I know. To like the point that Aditya has just made, like we've received similar feedback from a lot of people. And I think that's important, and we're proud of that, because at the end of the day, it's really important to make ideas accessible.
Yeah.
I know. It's really important to kind of have people be part of the conversation as much as possible. And usually humor is a good way of doing that, how to not appear intimidating. Like that's, So we genuinely, it makes us very happy when people say that to us, because it feels like it's working in a way.
It is. You made a episode suni bittike I was hooked.
Nice.
Please follow Boju Bajai on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, everywhere. And YouTube.
Now coming to the type of podcast which you do, because I'm not say the whole idea about podcasting scene in Nepal is relatively new to the larger masses. Ani हामीले पडकास्ट देखेको भनेकै जो रोगनको हो होइन. अनि यहाँ जति पनि नयाँ पडकास्टहरू अहिले आइरहेछ सर्फेसमा मेन स्ट्रिम पडकास्टहरू, इट्स लाइक सिमिलर फर्मेट, हाम्रो पनि सिमिलर नै छ होइन. सो द्याट हेज बिन द बेन्चमार्क, एन्ड एभ्रिबडी इज लाइक पडकास्ट भन्ने बित्तिकै इट्स सपोज टु बी लङ फर्मेट, अनएडिटेड, र भिडियो पडकास्ट इन्टरभ्यू स्टाइल होइन, विच हामीले म बिङ अ पार्ट अफ हजुरको all years होइन, like that completely changed because म पनि podcast सुन्नु थालेको नि जो रोगन, and then there's Stephen Barlin भन्ने like हुन्छ नि, the CEO.
Let's not promote this guy as much. No. Completely, I understand. No.
Exposure towards podcast चाहिँ म पनि धेरै लेटरै आऊ होइन मलाई पनि यस्तै ठाउँहरुबाट
that was more accessible.
That was more accessible. त्यही नै देखेको अनि सो मैले पनि दिमागमा podcast भने त यस्तै नै हुन्छ जस्तो लाग्यो नि त. But being a part of that podcast festival, it completely changed my mind. You know, obviously then talking with you, then completely changed my mind.
Inception भयो.
Sorry, Aditya.
आदिको रोस्ट भइरहेको थियो कार्यक्रम भएन. Sorry Aditya, sorry, please continue.
त्यसपछि तपाईँको एपिसोड सुनेपछि त झन् मेरो त माइन्ड ब्लोन भयो. So
डेन्जर फ्यान बोय भनेर थियो तपाईहरुको एपिसोडको.
So do you want to talk about the kind of podcast that you do and the kind of podcast that you want to promote? The love for audio podcast and why, you know, audio.
I mean, I think the format that you mentioned, the unedited interview style, guests down in, that's totally
as long as
I can understand why it's popular and there's a huge demand.
And we're not dismissing it because to be able to, I think you have to be a really good listener and interviewer to be able to do that.
Yeah.
One of our, I don't know why we keep talking about Joe Rogan, but हाम्रो एकजना speaker, Carl Javier from Puma Podcast in Philippines said कि people for folks like, Joe Rogan who do these interviews, he's been a broadcaster for over 20 years.
20 years before he started his podcast. So he didn't just get
one
in front of a mic
and just I know how to make a podcast. So एउटा त्यो छ, but what you said is so understandable. It's like accessible. जे छ मान्छेले त्यही नै बुझ्छ नि त हैन. So you just put it on YouTube. YouTube is the most popular platform in Nepal. So you just think that podcast भनेको is just like the interview setup. You speak in front of camera. That's podcast भन्ने मान्छेको बुझाइ छ. But obviously podcasts have been around for a long time and there's been so much experimenting done in terms of what the audio platform can do.
Yeah. Because as we started out, we wanted to do audio नै के. So the first 4 episodes is just audio हाम्रो चाहिँ. अनि पछि चाहिँ like because अब demands भनौँ न सबैजना like video.
We figured that we could reach more people.
Yeah,
of course.
So त्यो गरेर नि अलिकति temptation पनि भएको
Of course.
So that's how we switched into video.
Yeah.
But like I've been starting out with like it's going to be all audio नै थियो हाम्रो पनि.
We also want to reach more people. I don't want it like that. It would be very dishonest if I were to say, hey, we're happy in our own little world, like SoundCloud and wherever you get your podcasts, whatever world. Toro, I guess the way we see it is that we want to be on YouTube. Toro, we don't want to be on YouTube where we are just lifting our audio content and like putting it on YouTube. Okay, we see them as 2 separate mediums. And we feel like whatever content we produce for the audio medium can be repurposed for the video medium. And whatever content we produce specifically for the video medium could be repurposed for the audio medium. So this it is. And videos takes a lot of work. Like, it takes a lot of work. We did like this 4-part mini web series and we almost kind of had a breakdown,
Which is amazing.
Golf Gaff.
Thank you.
Golf Gaff. I'm a Golf Gaff series. Please check out on our YouTube page, please. Please.
And you guys also have the short videos.
Yeah, we tried that too. So that was like repurposing our audio content for the video medium. So video shots just the banako. So हामीले चाहिँ त्यसरी हेर्छौँ के. So and to talk about audio now is, of course, audio interview format works. Tara, I think there's so much more you can do with the medium, I know. So we really want to like, and so some of the episodes that we've done is us really trying to. We're very inspired by podcasts like This American Life and Radio Lab, and So
the Daily.
So some of the episodes that we've done, for example, that we're very proud of is. I know Sutne App's episode bhayo, where it's kind of there is a central theme, but we're telling a story. We bring in the reporter. The reporter is part of the story too. We have characters, and if you were at Molly Webster's session during the podcast festival, she was like talking about how important characters are. When you're using the audio medium for storytelling. Or kun episodes
हामीले 2021, I forget your last 2 years skill. The March series हामीले गरेका थियौँ 5-part episodes about women stories हैन. So त्यहाँ पनि reported pieces and lots of कस्तो भन्ने we got to experiment with sound. We're talking about sound design just recently, you know. So we worked with Rajan Sheshta, Fat Cowley, on like, you know, like creating a different, like when you listen, listening experience फरक छ नि त. So overall भनौँ न अब reported pieces हामी दुईजना मात्रै बोल्ने अनि background music मात्रै होइन. It was like the two of us talking, the reporter bringing a story, talking to someone, bringing their story, and then adding all the sounds and the sound design to sort of elevate the overall भनौँ न 20-30 minute however long the podcast is. And I think we are super proud of those kind of things that we do. जहाँ चाहिँ it's beyond just the two of us.
So video मात्र त्यस्तो you can do that, though it would have to be a documentary.
Vox style.
Whereas that would not be possible in the current video podcast format that you just referred to, you know. So to limitations, say so we're not saying that, you know, we're sort of not going to be on video on YouTube or this is sort of how we view the mediums and how we want to experiment with the mediums, whether it be audio or video.
So video ma pani, if we want to do video, we don't want to just, you know, last time got it, which was like a late night show type of variety show on a shoestring budget. So that was like very exciting for us to be able to, it was not just two of us and talking to two people, which we did, which was part of it, but then we tried to
bring a comedy sketch and a musical performance, you know. So it was like we see like the entire thing as like an artifact. That sounds really pretentious. It's like, you know, there is shape and form to that.
Definitely. I think यो चाहिँ मान्छेहरुलाई बुझाउँदाखेरि सुरुमा तपाई हामी जुन when we had the conversation when you were telling me हुन्छ नि like audio platform, it's not just about like talking, there's like a lot of things that goes into it, and you were like emphasizing so hard on like how editing plays a huge role in podcast, you know. Whereas हाम्रो खाली podcast we aim like हुन्छ नि raw unedited खाली, whereas तपाईहरुले जसले मलाई बुझाउनु खोजिरहनु भएको थियो मैले राम्ररी बुझ्न सकिरहेको थिएन के. So until and unless people just go and listen to one of your episodes, they wouldn't
several of our episodes.
I think if they listen to one, like the several just follows us.
Thank you so much, Aditya. Super fan. You are our super fan. Thank you.
Super fan. Like about Sutni apps ko jun चाहिँ episode थियो नि हैन, त्यसमा how you start with talking about the topic, then you have like, you know, about stories and opinions from like different groups, and like there's people.
What about the letter reading?
Yes.
At the
oh my god. Yes. And the sound effects and just giving us a whole picture of like how dating is for different age groups, for different groups of people as a whole, and like ties so together in the whole episode. And how other podcasts or hamre podcast is just like 2 or 3 people just like talking on unarko matra, but like if you listen to one of your episodes, there's like multiple people, like multiple characters and everything. You get a bigger picture about just the topic as a whole.
And then also सबैले त्यो गर्नुपर्छ भन्ने पनि because it's very resource intensive, number one.
True.
Time लाग्छ, and there's certain kind of expertise that you भनौँ न अब because me more journalistic background बाट आएर अलिक सजिलो भएको हो कि अलिकति, and also because we've been doing this for over 5 years now. So
so Brikuti is like, you know, Brikuti ko journalistic skills. And sort of and then when we have the content, like I work a lot on like the scripting, you know, like how to give shape to this. So I think like Amru's skills also really like match and that and sort of reaching out to people who would be interested in working with us. That's really important too, I think, because if you don't find the right people
to collaborate.
So त्यो पनि छ.
दुईजना मात्र, like I'm sure you guys also दुईजनाले मात्रै गर्न सबै कुरा सम्भव पनि हुँदैन हैन. So यसको लागि चाहिँ अब like when we produce episodes like this, we set aside like a good month and a half to work on one episode यस्तोको लागि हैन, from start to finish. So it does take time, and but I hope like people.
But we also do Aure episodes, like where it's just Brikuti and I just, you know, cold.
I Gunsoni guys, I want to talk about my feelings, guys. On that episode,
awesome. So yeah, but just to talk about the 2-3 hours, okay, length.
Length.
2-3 hours length of the podcast.
त्यो हुन्छ नि अहिले त्यो भिडियो पडकास्टहरुमा त 3 घण्टा भइदिन्छ नि त. So Brikuti and I always like are in shock. Just 3 घण्टा. That's like
a lot of time.
A lot of time. No? I mean, do people fast forward through this? Do they like?
How do you guys listen?
म त 1.5 को स्पिडमा राख्छु छु. I swear.
Video पनि?
No, I stick to Spotify.
Okay.
More पनि I usually listen to podcasts when I'm driving, and that's like half my day. सो मलाई चाहिँ आई डु इट इन बिट्स एन्ड पिसेस सो म अब घरबाट कुनै ठाउँमा गयो भने आधी घन्टा लाग्छ सो एउटा हाफ हुन्छ सो आई हेभ अ ब्रेक इन बिट्विन आई मिट पिपल वाट एभर देन अगेन द्याट कन्टिन्युज सो लाइक 1-2 दिन लाग्छ एउटा पडकास्ट इट्स नट लाइक वान सिङ्गल लेन्थमा चाहिँ बसेर 2 घन्टाको पडकास्ट चाहिँ सिधा होइन
बिकज मेरो पनि त्यही नै कम्युटले गर्दा नै आई गट ड्रन टु लाइक पडकास्ट एन्ड अडियो बुक्स के अब अडियो बुक्स त झनै लामो हुन्छ 7-8 आवर्सको हुन्छ नि त सो इट्स सोर्ट अफ लाइक गिभ्स यु द टाइम टु इमर्स इन इट जस्तो पनि लाग्छ मलाई चाहिँ
one thing about these long format conversational khali it feels like if the conversation is done right it feels extremely natural and you kind of feel part of the conversation. I've often had times where like the podcast is going so well you don't want to stop so I just like take a longer route.
Same. I swear.
So
यो podcast पनि सुन्नेहरुले चाहिँ गर्नु हुँदैछ होला I hope.
Okay, and coming back to
so wait so which has been like your favorite your long form interview
मेरो चाहिँ there's this the diary of a CEO भन्ने छ के हैन अनि it's really good if you like have some time but it's somehow related it's a business podcast but like they have a lot of talks about just this men trying like being vulnerable as well but like this pursuit for happiness this so the whole podcast is about how the diary of a CEO we as business people or as just people like as people we're just like expected to earn money and like be very popular be very famous the society le je successful bhanera डिजाइन लाइक यो त भनेको हुन्छ नि त्यो नै हो द्याट इज द गोल टु ह्याप्पिनेस खालि हुन्छ नि त दिस पडकास्ट काइन्ड अफ च्यालेन्जेस द्याट हुन्छ नि डिपेन्ड अन पिपल हाउ लाइक when सक्सेस क्यान लुक डिफरेन्ट हुन्छ नि मेबी त्यो फर्म अफ सक्सेसले नै तिमीलाई ह्याप्पिनेस दिँदैन दे माइट बी अदर थिङ्स खालि अनि सो द पर्सन हु डज इट स्टिभन बाई हि इज लाइक द यङ्गेस्ट ड्रागन 10 सो इज द यङ्गेस्ट इन्भेस्टर एज वेल इज भेरी नाइस
अनि कृतिशा तिम्रो चाहिँ
मेरो चाहिँ आई एक्चुली स्टार्टेड विथ एनपिआरको हुन्छ नि मोडर्न लभहरू त्यस्तो त्यस्तोहरू अनि त्यहाँबाट चाहिँ सुरु भएको बट लाइक मलाई चाहिँ इट्स लाइक आई पिक के बिकज लाइक पडकास्ट पनि लाइक देयर आर सो मेनी लाइक इन्टायर इन्डस्ट्रीको नै छ नि त सो इफ आई वान्ट टु लिसन टु सम फेमिनिस्ट पडकास्ट देयर इज वान इफ आई वान्ट टु नो अ लिटल बिट अबाउट आई डोन्ट नो स्टक मार्केट or interior designing or anything then there's that खालेको okay so I just like meander around खालेको
I think the only thing like यो भिडियो पड अहिले नेपालको कन्टेक्समा के हाम्रो अस्ति वर्कसपमा पनि एकजना भेरी स्विट भाइ केम होइन अनि उसलाई पनि एकदम पडकास्ट सुरु गर्नु मन थियो अनि वी आस्क्ड हिम लाइक के हो त पडकास्टको टपिक भनेर अनि I'm gonna talk to like हामी 3जना साथी छौँ and usually we have these really nice amazing conversations and we're gonna sort of put that out as a podcast होइन and I think that's wonderful like you should be able to just use any medium and that's what's great about podcast anyone can just use that medium I know there's no gatekeepers there's no like barriers as you would have in traditional media platforms but I do think that there is you have to have some sense of responsibility towards your listener जस्तो चाहिँ लाग्छ है मलाई
5 जनाले सुन्यो भने पनि they should not be misinformed you should not त्यो listeners को चाहिँ एकछिन time respect गर्ने कुरा जुन हुन्छ नि even if just like 5 people are going to listen to your podcast even if they are your friends and family I feel like there's certain things once you have that the mic to like amplify whatever it is that you have thoughts on whether it's the show that you just watched or whether it's something that you've been thinking about हैन त्यो चाहिँ हुनु पर्छ
in terms of like information भन्नु खोज्नु भएको तपाईले
information मात्रै हैन like I'm not saying like go do like 5-page research and bring and then talk about it but आफू पनि I think you have to come from a place where you are त्यो awareness चाहिँ हुनु पर्यो कि
people are listening
that people you are
listening and you might like influence someone the way they think or the way they act even so त्यो एक प्रकारको I think त्यो innately त्यो एक प्रकारको त्यो responsibility चाहिँ को बारेमा सोच्नु पर्छ कि जस्तो चाहिँ लाग्छ मलाई
हामी साथीहरु त हो यहाँ बोल्दियौ न यतिकै अनि सबभन्दा डेन्जरस कुरा यही त हो हामी यो जो रोगनको कुरा गरेछौँ the fact that उसको शोमा आएर and he's allowing people to spread misinformation about vaccines not as simple as that like scientific discoveries-हरुलाई something in the middle of the pandemic you are giving a platform to people just because you want to hear the other side or just because कसैले भनेको कुरा चाहिँ ओ खतरा भन्छ यार त्यो केटाले ओ खतरा छ त्यो ब्रोलाई बोलाउनु पर्यो no you do your research and you make sure that you are responsible no?
and if there's anything that's slightly alikati oh dude like you say this is not factual
guys,
or you know
start
this
editing, please start editing yeah maybe उनीहरूले धेरै सोचेन होला हैन त्यो कुरा भन्दा or like the host ले challenge पनि गर्दैन कति ठाउँमा अनि सबैभन्दा त I think यो and people अहिले के भएको छ नि पडकास्ट यति पपुलर भएको छ गएको 2 वर्ष यो पेन्डेमिक सुरु भएदेखिको हैन where did you listen to that oh I heard it on a podcast so it must be true भन्ने कुरा हुन्छ नि लाइक त्यो हुन्छ नि मान्छेहरुको so I think त्यो गेस्टले त when you invite someone it's fine they you probably know what they're going to talk but then as a host as a responsible host you need to challenge those ideas if they are bringing dangerous ideas to your show and you know they're going to bring isto khale
misinformed ideas yeah like just some
and फेरि यसरी हेर्यो भने the misinformed ideas are the ideas that get the most traction के अनि अलिकति radical अलिकति वा खाले हुन्छ नि त अनि फेरि these podcast platforms or any sort of media platforms उनीहरूले they take these things out of context and put it in like short form like TikTok or something and these are the things that reach traction के अनि views त
controversial भयो
भने त चल्छ if people are actually talking sense people don't want
and also there's a larger conversation around the responsibility of the platforms also ni ta haina so
like Spotify and Joe Rogan ko mess हुन्छ नि in a way
so त्यो पनि छ अब हामी त्यस्तो फेमस त छैनौं तर पनि I think even if like 5 or 10 people are listening I think it's always important that you realize ki when you have like a little mic that you're holding and speaking out on loudspeaker just when you have your एउटा channel whether if like 5 or 50 or whatever 50,000 just to be careful
and
about
it's something
those
that we do also किनभने कति बेला हामीले पनि record गर्दाखेरि we might use a tone that we're not happy with or you know I might swear and I'm not and sometimes we do use swear words that we often like you know put a disclaimer so Brigudi and I spend a lot of time like you know going back and forth like do you think this is okay like do you think this is okay type ko हामीले पनि गर्छौं so I think that should just be like a practice that we all kind of
and also being really respectful of like you know हामीले ta if we go beyond like 40 minutes sometimes you're like oh my god like what are we doing whenever we try to because you know if somebody is willing to read my piece or like listen to what I'm doing then you want to make sure कि उनीहरूले त्यो गरेर कस्तो waste of time भन्ने चाहिँ नहोस् भन्ने हुन्छ क्या always something that you know that goes through our head all the time so
saying like, that we want to make long form
we want to make long form
1
but
hour
तर अलिकति different perspective यसमा हैन I mean about हुन्छ नि like listening to a different point of view खालेको हाम्रो चाहिँ I think it's that के like different point of view नै कुरा गर्ने खालेको हुन्छ के because कति धेरै कुराहरू त it's something people think about तर like त्यो openly कुरा गरे हुँदैन नि त like misinformed कुरा नै हुन्छ तर like because it's just like in your head like हुन्छ नि like a rule that hasn't been like talked about खालेको अनि but then like त्यो isn't it supposed to happen through यस्तै conversations जस्तो के
yeah absolutely so setting is important I know so for example if you to invite a guest where you're all trying to figure out something together I know the listener knows Nita what the listener has signed up to I know so your different point of views pani we're slightly different because we have an ideological point of view so we call ourselves a feminist podcast you know so hamro point of view the different ones because we will of course be critical of anything that is against our feminist values I know so हाम्रो चाहिँ अलिकति त्यसले त्यही कारणले हाम्रो टेक अलिकति छुट्टै हो कि you know what I mean so yours is like anyone who listens to Dhikichyau knows what they're going in for you know
because like why I'm saying this is because कतिवटा कुरा चाहिँ like you have a conversation here हैन like two way खाले conversation हुन्छ it's like opposing views हरू हुन्छ अनि like अब पडकास्टमा त फ्री फ्लोइङ हो नि त, कति कुरा थाहा नभएको पनि हुनसक्छ. अनलाइक वी गो ब्याक होम एन्ड देन वी लिसन टु इट अगेन हुन्छ नि. अब लाइक त्यसको लागि प्रेप गर्दै गर्दाखेरि नयाँ नयाँ आइडियाजहरू नयाँ नयाँ रिटालिएसन्सहरू आउँछ नि त. अब त्यसको लागि चाहिँ अब लाइक अब तपाईँले भन्नुभएको अनुसार गर्ने हो भने लाइक हाम्रो त कस्तो अनप्रिपेयर्ड नै भएको जस्तो भयो नि त.
ए होइन होइन त्यो भने होइन त्यो भनेको होइन. इट्स जस्ट लाइक इभन फ्री फ्लो 2 hours 3 hours 4 hours हुँदा पनि आई थिङ्क एट द एन्ड अफ द डे द पिपल हु रन द पडकास्ट आई थिङ्क इट्स अलवेज they should always be in control of how sort of like
what
sort
content you put out
just
at the end.
कसैले अब misinformation नै कुरा गर्दाखेरि so that person might say something because they come from a certain place, so do you just let that person say the whole thing, or are you going to question, stop, or like challenge those ideas, especially if you think like that is going towards like hey you to is it a little problematic, is it a little like misinformed, half baked छ भने मैले चाहिँ भनेको त्यस्तो ठाउँमा चाहिँ आई थिङ्क इट्स इम्पोर्टेन्ट नट जस्ट फर द सेक अफ ओ इट्स हाम्रो यो वी हेभ अल द टाइम इन द वर्ल्ड आई त्यो होइन त्यो च्यालेन्ज गर्ने कुरा चाहिँ रेडी हुनुपर्छ कि स्पेसली इन टर्म्स अफ यो इङ्गेज हुनु मन छ भने यस्तो आइडियाज डिफ्रेन्ट पर्सपेक्टिभ ल्याउने छ भने आई थिङ्क इट्स रियली इम्पोर्टेन्ट नट टु गिभ द स्पेस जस्ट फर द सेक अफ गिभिङ द्याट डिफ्रेन्ट पर्सपेक्टिभ द्याट विच इज लाइक एन इजी वे आउट.
Yeah, so for example, if someone comes on your show, I know, and let's say you guys are talking about a political issue, I know. So let's say you're talking about caste discrimination, right? And someone comes on your show and you're talking about caste discrimination, and that person says, well, I don't think caste discrimination exists in Nepal. At this point, you have to intervene, Nita.
Right.
You can't just be like, oh really? Why do you think that? Like, you know what I mean? So I think these are calls that you have to make just to get. If that makes sense.
Okay, makes sense. Yeah. Because मैले चाहिँ कुन पर्सपेक्टिभबाट सोचिरहेको थिएँ भन्दाखेरि because मलाई चाहिँ I feel like once we've started doing this podcast, I feel like we've evolved over time. खाले क्या अनि कतिवटा कुरा चाहिँ like यो कन्भर्सेसनबाट इनिसिएट भयो अनि it triggers the ऊ के भन्नाले क्युरियोसिटी अझै पिक गर्छ and then we start researching about it like अनि त्यहीबाट like कन्टेन्टहरू पनि त्यही आइरहेको हुन्छ अनि then we reach a point where we have a better understanding and then when we look back it's like oh यो कुराहरू त नभन्नु पर्ने or like could have been better खालेको हो नि त. So it's like the podcast is growing with us खालेको पनि छ क्या हाम्रो चाहिँ
it all मैले I think हामी बोलिरहेको बेला I said this a million times. I think we started this podcast because we realized we're dumb and one lifetime is not enough to like learn about every single thing. So like obviously there are people who've invested significant amount of their life researching or working on this thing. So our idea was हामीले सबै कुरा गर्न सक्दैन, we're like pretty young हुन्छ नि, and like what if we could get people and just like have alikati bhaye pani knowledge and then that they've gathered over the years and just like like ani hamle jun topic ma interest or jun topic ma we're curious, so we can get people who've invested their time, their energy in researching, talking, thinking about those things and like just have a conversation and like the conversation ma with us, if our listeners can also like our listeners can also like relate to us that they are also young, they are also dumb, they don't know a lot of things, like by this settings maybe they can learn with us.
These are characters you're playing, no? You're not actually dumb, like you're playing this character, like that's the setup of your podcast where this sort of setting allows these conversations to take place because you're not sort of that interviewer on Nepal TV who's challenging your and questioning everything your guest says. Thought of, for example, let's say you invite someone to talk about as he's a worker airport ma on arrival visa ma they're asking people to bring cash for any tourist who comes in for on arrival visa because the ATM euta matrai cha ani digital channels
so Nepali cash boker aunu parne if people come
dollars, so these are like foreigners, tourists who arrive on Nepal and get on arrival visa, they'll pay back, they'll either get money out at ATMs or they'll pay like card transaction or whatever it is. I know as a त्यो गयो circular where like they're asking all tourists to bring $200 minimum in cash. I know. So let's say you guys want to find out what's going on here. And you want to find out like why is this suddenly happening. So you might bring a specialist who will say like, oh, the reason why is because we don't want the tourists to queue up at the ATM. We don't want the tourists to have a difficult time like कार्ड हामीले someone said हामीले प्रहरीसँग टुरिस्टहरूलाई बाहिर पठाउनु पर्छ एटीएमबाट पैसा झिक्न किनभने त भित्रको एटीएम काम गरेको छैन. You might have someone who will talk about that side, no? But then there's another side to the story, you know? So are we investing enough on digital transparency? Is this like another way of like filling this current foreign reserve void? You know, whatever it might be. So त्यसमा पनि there has to be some form. So एउटा expert opinion is great. But there might be another expert who will have another opinion on the same thing. Definitely. So do you bring those two voices together and so that there's not one sole expert? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Now I get it.
I mean God is a कति like कुनै episodeहरुमा उचित नबुझेर if it's the same topic we do call in like with a different person again and talk about the same things. And once we're done with the series or once we're done with a couple of episodes, because two episodes there's a lot of things we learned, and then we do like it's like reflection episodes.
Right. Oh, that's really nice.
So the reflection episodes it's just me and her, and we talk about what we've learned in between couple of episodes. I think we're coming to the end now. I think time constraint pani alikati
340 voices.
Okay.
Do you want to add anything to that? No. Okay.
So I think like that has sort of like brought us to the end of today's episode. Even though there are like so many things I want to talk about with you guys, and
we'll
like
have a part 2 when everybody's back together again. If we can manage somewhere somehow. When
online handinu parla
maybe
more convenient.
No, thank you so much for having us. And as I said, Boju Bajai, like, you know, we're slightly different in terms of हाम्रो एउटा you know, where we have a very strong point of view, an ideological point of view. So a lot of the things that we're doing might not apply to, you know, a lot of other podcasts. And yeah,
please subscribe to our...
Yes, I think we've given... I also see these mainstream podcasts as a gateway. Just
for
like,
the podcast community to flourish.
So just like you get into any topic, if you get into music as a rock, you'll start by listening to Green Day, then you go deeper into like Tool and stuff. So you go into like a more danger music. I feel like just like with podcast also, like people are not used to listening to long format content. They just want bits and pieces. If people can look, so these mainstream podcasts can be the gateway, entry point, and then actually dig deeper, and like we would really appreciate, and like I would really hope that when a podcast like Boju Bajai gets more and more traction, like especially from हाम्रो age group of people.
Yes.
Because
नातिनीहरुले सुनोस् हाम्रो त Boju Bajai भयो.
And so I hope it trickles down. Okay?
Yeah. Now we're going to go on TikTok and and really find our young DG
selves.
Yeah. No. But thank you so much, and I hope I just say more people listen to different kinds of podcasts.
They don't have to listen to us.
But it'll be nice if you listen to Boju Bajai. But I'm just saying, there's so many other podcasts out there, and the more you listen, the more you'll be more open to not just format but ideas also.
Yeah, because there is this thing called YouTube called rabbit hole, the algorithms only. So sometimes like just getting out of YouTube and listening to podcasts on like audio platforms also can be a nice.
So people who are listening to this, this is gonna be audio podcast, obviously.
Yes.
Also the Thawe. But we'd like really wish that people try out if they've not. Someone try out audio podcast and like the kind of intimate. It's more intimate than like a video podcast. It's more. It's a different experience. I'd like to, if you've not tried it yet, like. Try it. You would.
Yeah, security got the camera. Sorry, Itisha. CCTV camera. Anyway, but thank you so much for letting us
thank
do
you, Kritisha,
this episode.
For having us. And for keeping this audio as well. I know we had a long conversation about this.
Yes, we did.
Thank you so much, Amro. Like I think it was really insightful in so many ways. And we'd love to have the conversations with you guys on podcast or off podcast. Definitely any. So thank you so much for coming. And we'd like to mention our sponsors, Coffee Ate It For It, and our venue partner, Musicology. So if you guys want to try out the coffee, you guys can find them on Instagram, and also Musicology. You guys should like visit this place. It's like
and definitely
pretty
have
cool.
the burger. It's really good.
I'm getting hungry. My book
Yeah, अब हामी गएर खान्छौँ होला.
Alright, that's
So
a
with
wrap.
that,
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
bye.